everyone. I'm Philip, and this is Mark, and we're with a company called Athabasca Minerals. Now, before we get into the details of our business, I want to start by thinking about high school for a few moments. And I know this can be awkward for most of us because, well, we were all awkward in high school, but I want to think about how our friends were grouped and the groupings of friends that existed. So first we had the gangsters, and of course, well, we all know the gangsters. We had the cool kids, and in hindsight, were they really that cool? We had the stoners, and we had the groups of girls with color-coded gel pens all trying to become doctors, of which I actually married one. We had the jocks, and of course, they all wanted to get into the NBA and the NFL. But was there anybody in your high school graduating class that said, hey, you know what? When I graduate high school, I want to go into sand and gravel? Of course, that kid would be very weird, obviously weirder than a lot of us, maybe not all of us, but they would be very weird. But let's think about it, right? Sand and gravel is used to build the stadiums that the jocks wanted to play in. It's used to create the bongs that the stoners used to get stoned. It's used in the chips, in the cell phones that the cool kids use to swipe really fast on Tinder. Many life-saving medical devices are made out of silica sand, like the various valves and flaps used in heart surgeries.
Let's be serious. At the time, nobody wanted to go into industry because it seemed boring, like really boring. But the fact of the matter is that sand and aggregates are in everything that make up the world today. And that creates a huge opportunity. Around the world right now, there is 50 billion tons of aggregates sold a year. Within North America, there's $70 billion dollars throughout the US and $7 billion in Canada. And nobody seems to be paying attention to this. And I think that creates a huge opportunity.
But before we get into the more interesting stuff, we want to give a brief overview of Athabasca Minerals as a company.
So Athabasca Minerals was founded in 2006, and we had our IPO in 2008. We trade on the Toronto Venture Exchange as well as the OTC. We are a horizontally integrated group of companies with 4 cash-flowing, synergistic business divisions.
Now, the word synergy in this world is a little bit of a LinkedIn buzzword, but in our case, the business divisions actually really work well together. Let's take a look at each of them really quickly. First, we have AMI Aggregates. This is our Canadian sand and gravel operation. They do some really cool stuff, and they make some good money, but they're pretty much a standard sand and gravel play.
Next, we have TerraShift Engineering. This is our engineering play. They do in-house technical work for us across our portfolio, but also generate external revenue for the corporation by servicing other companies in the industry. We also have AMI Silica, which I'll talk about a bit later, and this is really cool. Sand is in hot demand these days for everything from applications in the energy space to solar panels and microchips.
And lastly, we have AMI ROCKCHAIN, which is a technology company that provides a solution for a supply chain issue in the aggregates business. But the reason that we're telling you all this corporate stuff is essentially to say this. There's a lot of idea guys around every industry. You know these guys, the big idea guys. And don't get me wrong, I like these guys. But it's easy to spitball ideas to radically transform industries. I'm not impressed by that. Everyone wants to be the dude in a Netflix documentary, write a book, get 1 million Instagram followers, be retweeted by Elon Musk, date a celebrity. That's the easy stuff. That's the fun stuff. But when the real work starts, that's when people fall off. At Athabasca Minerals, we're a company built on the brass tacks of creation and implementation. We are uniquely poised to not only identify the opportunities, like those big idea guys, but to aggressively pursue only the best of the opportunities. So we're going to tell you about 2 of what we believe are the best opportunities that we're currently working on, AMI Silica and AMI ROCKCHAIN. Mark, take it away.
Thanks, Phil. So first of all, do you remember a year ago when the global consensus was that because there's a virus floating around, nobody's ever going to need hydrocarbons again? And industry prices reflected this. I've often thought of the words of Warren Buffett, be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. So it was during this time last year when everybody was shedding assets, running for the hills out of fear, that we saw a huge opportunity on our hands. And we started the process of looking for multiple acquisition targets, of which there's one primary one that made the most sense, and we transacted on it. We chose to double down on a time when everybody else was running for cover. So as a result, we acquired a world-class mining operation located in Wisconsin in the United States from a global player. It came with 800 rail cars and a transload facility that positioned us to ship sand throughout North America. It came with over 30 years of production reserves in place in the ground, and that's assuming 2 million tons a year of sales, which is our nameplate capacity. And one of the critical things as well is it came with staff, and it was operating, so it was positioned so that we could begin selling product in the first month upon closing on the acquisition. I'd also like to point out that we just released a press release here and we announced that April we surpassed a substantial production milestone for this new acquisition as we're ramping up and capitalizing on the increased market demand. So here's a few pictures from the operation that we acquired. As you can see, this is extremely large scale. What you see here is our wet pile for our medium sand that's produced with that tripper conveyor, which allows you to unload that sand anywhere along there. Next slide. There's me on top of that tripper conveyor.
So you might delete later.
And here's a few pictures just for size and scale. Like here's a semi truck, and those are our silos which hold our dry product storage that's ready to then be loaded on that truck, taken to the rail yard right beside, and shipped all throughout North America. Our sales right now are roughly half Canadian, half U.S., going all across the U.S. I'd like to point out that energy security right now is at a higher level of importance and recognition by the general population and politicians than at any point in the last 10 to 15 years. Being able to develop energy independence within North America is important from both a political and geopolitical and economic perspective. And not having to rely on third-party dictators for energy security is critical. I hope I don't end up on a Russian no-fly list for this. And one of the critical points as well that I'd like to point out is our market timing. We capitalized on this at the absolute down point in the cycle. We acquired assets that were constructed in 2016 for over $100 million, and we paid less than $2 million cash for the deal.
All right, so on to AMI ROCKCHAIN, our technology product. So in 2017, when our CEO started with the business, his original plan was to grow the business through an aggressive sand and gravel pit acquisition strategy. But it was taking a long time to find gravel pits that were willing to sell. So he devised a plan where he could network the market without owning the gravel pits, kind of like Uber or like Airbnb. And this idea eventually morphed into what we call ROCKCHAIN. Now, the problem that we were addressing in the market was the fragmented market with many single pit owners that are very difficult to access for customers that are looking to buy sand and gravel. So we found that general contractors were spending a lot of time going out to sand and gravel pits. And when they were doing this, they were only approaching a handful when there might be hundreds of gravel pits that would be willing to provide pricing for the project. So as an example of the fragmentation in the market, in Edmonton, in the city that I am from, there's 1 million people. This is in northern Canada. To serve that 1 million people, there's 300 gravel pits owned by over 118 companies. So with this many gravel pits in such a small radius, how can companies efficiently go out and source product and know that they're getting the best deal? So the traditional method of doing this is to go into the area, use your knowledge of the local market. You'd combine that with some Google searches, a few phone calls, a few emails, and honestly, maybe even a few faxes, if you believe it. And out of this, you would get roughly 2 to 4 quotes as an output. With the ROCKCHAIN solution, however, we take the 300 sand and gravel pits, the 75 trucking companies in the area. We put it into our system, and the advanced algorithm crunches the numbers, and it produces the ROCKCHAIN solution. And not only do we provide a solution for the aggregates, helping customers approach many more sand and gravel pits than they would be able to on their own, we also provide logistics solutions along with that, with the quote. So in summary, AMI ROCKCHAIN is a one-stop shop for both buyers, sellers, and transporters, and we provide unmatched access to the aggregates market. With access to over 8,000 sand and gravel pits across Canada and 2,000 trucking companies, we are uniquely positioned to provide unmatched access to the aggregate sector, along with transportation and logistics solutions and quality control. So how it would work is the customer comes online and submits a request, or how it does work, sorry, I should clarify how it does work. The customer comes online and submits a request by dropping a PIN. When they drop this PIN, they submit certain information like the volume, the types of materials that they're looking for, and the project timelines. Then we use our algorithm to produce the numbers and to provide a quote. They then review the quote and approve the quote, and the product is delivered. Right. Now, importantly, we're not actually a broker at this time. We actually take custody of the goods and provide the quality control and the logistics solutions with that. We find that it adds more value at this time and is more attractive to the customers that we're seeking. Now, I know you might be thinking quality control for sand and gravel, and it's a good question. We're asked this all the time about quality control. It is really important with hundreds of different kinds of rock that we get the right type of rock, and not just the right type, the right size of the right type. Because if we don't get the right stuff, that's when stuff starts falling apart, and that's not the kind of media attention that any of us want. So in our first year, we did about $1 million in revenue. We were just dipping our toes in and assessing the opportunity. The next year, we did $5 million in revenue, and this year, ROCKCHAIN is on track to do $15 million of revenue, meaning that our combined parent company gross revenue would be around $40 million, but of course, that's a forward-looking statement. In 2022, we plan to deliver 1 million tons of aggregate, which we are on track for. We are starting to provide logistics solutions as a standalone product because we already have the software system built out, and we have found that the market is looking for this. We're developing software as a solution, or SaaS as the cool kids call it, and this will allow companies to use us as a bidding tool for market analytics. And lastly, we're working on some pretty cool pit membership programs for the gravel pits that do supply us price, so they can get access to superior insurance rates and reclamation bond programs as a benefit of being a member of our platform. We believe that AMI ROCKCHAIN is uniquely positioned in the market. We're excited about what we're working on, and we're really eager and looking for people to become a part of the story as we look to bring technological sophistication to an otherwise old school industry that none of the cool kids were interested in high school.
So in summary, we believe that we're uniquely positioned as a company to identify opportunities and capitalize on them in this space. We have the operational expertise that pure tech companies don't have, and we have the technological expertise that traditional old school operating companies don't have. We're always looking for people who are motivated to be part of our story, both as investors as well as potential people to join in on the tech or the operations side.
And lastly, we'd like to thank the event coordinators that put this on, specifically Robert Kraft. We know that event management comes with a ton of risk, but of course during these times it comes with even more. So thank you so much for taking that risk so that we could be here to share our story.
And with that, we'd like to open up the floor to questions.
Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question on the ROCKCHAIN business. How do you manage and expenses structured? I mean, is this like you're selling the gravel and then all of the expenses against that, and you're actually putting it on your income statement as a flow-through?
So the margin profile on ROCKCHAIN is typically in the range of 10%. So historically, when let's say a major construction company is going out and looking to source aggregate for a major infrastructure project, let's say, one of the biggest things that drives cost on ROCKCHAIN is proximity of the pit to wherever the need is. And traditionally, especially on a major project, some of these multi-billion-dollar type projects, there might be multiple small gravel operations that are very close by, but these are privately owned. They don't have, the ability to get on the vendors list with, a major construction company. And so the easy thing for the major construction company to do is to just simply, go to, Lafarge or Burnco or, a Granite or, one of the major players in the region. And they may be moving the product 200 miles when there might be a good solution 10 miles down the road. And so what we do is we mark up the source for the gravel and we mark up the logistics. We coordinate everything and we're the one-stop shop. And because we have the cost advantage, because of our understanding of the market, because we have our data analytics that other people don't have, we're able to layer on that 10% fee traditionally and still save the customer money at the end of the day.
And one more thing, that model, the people that are willing to accept a slight markup, it's not everybody, which is why we're pursuing the path of a software as a service for people that just want to use the bidding tool. Because right now there are people that come to us just for the analytics and for the data that we house. And so with that, we'll be able to get the monthly subscription revenue off of people that are interested in that.
Yeah, great question. So, we acquired that asset from a global energy services company, and they had over 100 portfolio companies across the industry. Everything from silica sand to downhole tools and everything like that. When the market got really bad, they had a mandate that they had to shed a certain amount of assets. And there weren't a lot of buyers at the time. And similar to how with a garage sale, when the first priority is to clean out your garage, second priority is can you get anything for it? We went forward with a bid of, worked out to just under $2 million, and they accepted it. So it's we were bullish on the market. We understood the fact that there was, after 2 years of nobody investing, we'd end up getting into an energy crisis and things would have to come back. But that wasn't the common mentality across the industry, and so people were running from it.
Yeah, that was great, guys. Thanks. Just to give everybody a sense of scope of the asset, speed of assets. And I understand, you're selling frac samples to companies. You're not going to technical with that. Let's just say on a blended basis, if you do 1 million tons, I think you said 50% is your target of the nameplate capacity this year. What does that mean from a revenue perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So, at a very conservative level, we're selling. This could mean at a minimum 25 million plus for our parent company. So this has the ability to substantially increase our revenue for the company and take us to a much higher point. And there's certainly opportunities to go over and above that. We exceeded that target in April that was mentioned there, and it's continuing to grow. The market dynamics have shifted substantially, both from a volume and a price point perspective. Yep.
This is kind of capital intensive. That's generating some revenue. Sense of capital structure.
Sure. As of right now, our market cap is right around $30 million. We have, as of right now, around $500,000 of debt. more than that of cash, and our net debt is right around zero. So we're well capitalized to execute on our growth plans for the next year without any dilution or anything like that. We were able to execute on this U.S. acquisition without having to issue a lot of shares, and we're able to continue driving the growth in ROCKCHAIN as well. So this isn't a major capital intensive business.
And it certainly helps when our acquisitions are ready to turn product on day one, and it's not like a 5-year pathway to getting something out of the ground.
And it's also okay. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. My question is on ROCKCHAIN related. So, could you just explain kind of the dynamics of ROCKCHAIN in terms of how many suppliers, how many commits are, how many you've signed up so far, and then same thing on the buy side, like who's doing this buying and how fragmented the market is that?
Yeah, sure. So the 8,000 gravel pits that we've got linked into the system, we've approached nearly all of them over the time that we've been doing this. We continue to actively approach them on a day-to-day basis for other services like the engineering services that we've got in-house. So we have a vast array. Obviously, with that, there's some companies that have a huge amount of sand and gravel pits owned by one company, and the dynamic with those businesses is slightly different than our dynamic would be with a single pit operator. The single pit operators in many cases look at us as an opportunity to be able to compete against the very large gravel pit owners, like the very big conglomerates. They're able to access us the same way that a small hotel being listed on Expedia would get access to a new revenue stream, right? So it's quite exciting for them once they understand that we're actually not a competitor for them, that we're actually going to help bring them more business that would otherwise miss out on. And then with the customers, it's kind of broken down into a couple of major sections of customers. Of course, you've got the large construction companies and heavy civil companies that are very aggregate intensive. And then you've got the mid-sized construction companies and civil companies as well. We also have some landscaping companies that approach us for some smaller volumes. But another big opportunity is the municipalities that are huge buyers of sand and gravel. We actually just won a large contract with a company called Canoe Procurement, where we are allowed to do trade certified, essentially sole source sales to cities. And so we network the market on the city's behalf, so they actually don't have to tender it. They can come to us pre-tender. And so with that, we've got access to 600 municipalities across the country with this program that's been put together and meets, of course, the trade requirements. So that's another big source for us as well.
I've got one question.
Sure.
I'd be curious to know how the pandemic has.
Great question. Going into the pandemic certainly impacted us quite negatively. A lot of our revenue streams really slowed down. 2020 was the worst year in the company's history, but it was during that time that we saw an opportunity versus a lot of other people that just fired everybody and buckled down. And I believe we emerged from the pandemic better positioned. We grew ROCKCHAIN through the pandemic to new levels. We executed on a strategic acquisition, and I think we've come out of the pandemic at the best point in the company's history.
Two questions. You showed a slide pertaining to sort of the TAM in Canada, United States, the typical 110 or 10 penetration exists. I think all those pits that you mentioned, 1,000 for Canadian. So my first question is, plan on rolling ROCKCHAIN out into the United States? My second question is, looking down the road, are there sort of ancillary services that you can add on to make this more robust kind of platform that can add some additional revenue sources?
Yeah, it's a good question, and thank you for that. So to answer the question about expansion into the United States, of course, the answer is yes to that. We are going to aggressively expand into the United States. We have to position ourselves well for that entry point, though, because we want to get it right. But that will be coming down the pipes in the next little bit. On the 8,000 gravel pits, those are all in Canada, the ones that we currently have. For the ancillary services, there's a whole spectrum of needs with the gravel pits, especially the single pit operators. So for example, right now, we have linked a new system into our platform so that people can actually buy or sell gravel pits on our platform. We found that gravel pit owners were going to like Royal LePage or Remax or these type brokerages to sell their gravel pits, and this was ineffective because they don't know how to properly assess the resources. So we are doing the sales of that as well as specialty equipment sales. So for crushers and the specialty equipment, so we are selling that for individuals, and we're finding that to be really attractive.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.